I'm Patrick Sonoro, and I'm a member of the Federation of Gay Games of the Middleman. I'll be acting as the MC for this year's memorial moment. We're going to begin our observance with a vocal offering by Federation of Gay Games board member Gene Doherty.
There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air waits for us somewhere. There's a time for us, someday a time for us, time for living and time to share, time to look, time to care, someday, somehow, we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving someday. There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us. Hold my hand and I'll take you there. Hold my hand and we're halfway there. Someday, somehow, somewhere.
Thank you, Gene. Thank you so much. And many thanks to all of you for taking part in the memorial moment of the 2011 Federation of Gay Games annual meeting. When we gather again a year from now for our next annual meeting in Cleveland, one of the two host cities of Gay Games 9, we will also be celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Gay Games. We will also be holding our 15th memorial moment at an annual meeting in which we ceremoniously unfold a signature quilt, read aloud the names which the Gay Games family have chosen to remember and honor over the years, and inscribe new tributes upon the quilt. That this ceremony has been adopted as a recurring component of every annual meeting is one of the characteristics that distinguishes this federation and has become a hallmark of our Gay Games culture. It could well be argued that the number of memorial moments associated with the Federation of Gay Games is much higher, but if counting strictly the ceremonies incorporating our established elements and occurring within the time frame of the annual meeting, then this is our 14th memorial moment. The Federation held a powerful memorial ceremony at the Homo Monument in Amsterdam, incorporating floral tributes upon the pink marble triangle which juts out into the canal beneath the Westertorten Cathedral, whose bells inspired daily relief in Anne Frank and the rest of the residents of the nearby secret annex, signaling the end of the workday and the precious hours in which they could let down their guard somewhat. During the annual meeting in San Francisco, in which we celebrated the Gay Games' 25th anniversary, the memorial moment was comprised of an elaborate, multi-site experience that began at a monument to the gay victims of the Holocaust, progressed to Harvey Milk Plaza in the Castro, beneath one of the world's largest rainbow flags, and concluded with our quilt ceremony held in the Mark Bingham Gymnasium at the Ricky Stryker Recreational Center. It would be quite a difficult task to calculate how many similar memorial moments have been part of the events to bring the rainbow flag as a symbolic torch from San Francisco, the Athens of the Gay Games, to the past 6 quadrennials. 2011 and 2012 both mark significant milestones in the history of the worldwide LGBTQ community. Some of them are nowhere near as joyous occasions to commemorate as the Gay Games' 30th anniversary, but nevertheless are still important for us and are still important landmarks to remember in terms of the progress we've made and the challenges we still face. It is 30 years since the first official case of AIDS was diagnosed in gay men on the west coast of America and almost simultaneously on the east coast as well. Although we've known for quite some time that HIV existed for decades before that, originating from a series of events and amplifiers in Africa and migrating to Haiti before being identified in the American gay population. From March 1st and continuing for another year until October 31st, 2012, is the 25th anniversary of the American Run for the End of AIDS, my 20-month journey around the perimeter of the United States and to 3 Canadian cities, including Toronto, on the northern route. The run has strong connections to the Gay Games and really is the genesis from which the International Rainbow Memorial Run evolved. 26 of my more than 9,000 miles around America were a marathon around the Supreme Court during the massive demonstration there following the 1987 March on Washington, which I ran in protest of the court's decision to uphold the United States Olympic Committee's lawsuit denying us the right to call our event the Gay Olympic Games. And on November 1st, the day after the run's homecoming, and if we'd not lost him that July, would also have been Tom Waddell's 50th birthday, I ran the New York Marathon as a tribute to Tom and as a statement that although the run around America was completed, the race against AIDS was far from over. When the Federation of Gay Games voted to establish the memorial moment at the 1997 annual meeting in Denver, we had just celebrated the 10th anniversary of the run's homecoming, with a run, a rally, and a quilt ceremony. So I had the quilt sent from New York to Denver for us to leave the original tributes in our first memorial moment. From its inception, it was decided that no specific criteria would be required in terms of cause of death, etc., for the people we chose to remember in the memorial moment. This same non-exclusive policy was adopted the following year when the rainbow flag effort to the Gay Games evolved from having a strictly AIDS memorial component with Tom Waddell and Keith Haring as the primary honorees into what we now know as the International Rainbow Memorial Run, adding breast cancer to the awareness campaign and Ricky Stryker as a third honoree. Some new names have been added to our list this year, including San Francisco Arts and Athletics member and Charter Federation of Gay Games director Michael Clark. I realized that it was quite fitting this year to add my father. It was a message from my father, and a very dark night of the soul back in October of 1984, that I got a message to follow in Terry Fox's footsteps. And it was only last year that I realized, my goodness, I hadn't added Terry Fox. And even though he died more than a year before the first Gay Games were held, he and his Marathon of Hope across Canada really were the inspiration for my run around America. And the memorial to him, next to BC Place in Vancouver, was not only the northeast corner of my run around America, but also marked the finish line for the Rainbow Run for the End of AIDS from San Francisco to Vancouver in 1990. to Gay Games 3. I hope this shows that it's never too late to add a name. It doesn't need to be someone who's died in the past year. If somebody occurs to you that would be fitting to be on our list, you are more than free to add that name. And now, I'm going to invite Shami Creamer to talk to you about a new name that's been added to the list, played a very important role in the Gay Games history.
Thank you, Brian. Monsieur, Madame Présidente, board members of the Federation, assembly members, and guests, thank you for having me here. This last year, we lost Richard Hunter, who his name probably is not familiar to most of you in this room, but when I'm finished, you will all know his importance for this event. I will read excerpts from an article that I recently wrote, and hopefully I'll be able to get through this. I will always remember the first time I met Richard Hunter, but then again, everyone remembers the first time they met Richard. He was just one of those guys. He, more than any other individual, was the nucleus that led to the founding of West Hollywood Aquatics, the first team within United States Masters Swimming whose mission focused on the inclusion of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender athletes. When I took over Team Los Angeles from Susan McGreevy in May of 1982, I organized the first athletes meeting on Sunday, 13th of June in Poinsettia Park in West Hollywood. The meeting started at 6 p.m. with swimmers, volleyball players, runners, wrestlers, and others all meeting for the first time. You literally could feel the electricity in that room of the anticipation of what we were working towards. The meeting was barely underway when it came to a complete standstill. Through the north door came two bronzed, bare-chested Adonises in cutoffs and sandals. The one, carrying a piece of corrugated cardboard, had a personality the size of Texas and this brilliant, megawatt smile that just wouldn't quit. He was one of those people who couldn't help himself from making an entrance into a room. It was just part of what made Richard Hunter who he was. The sleepy-eyed beauty at his side was Rick Boner, a swimmer-diver who would also become one of the original founders of West Hollywood Aquatics. They had just returned from Venice Beach, which was the gay beach in Los Angeles at the time, where they were recruiting new teammates. Richard showed us the cardboard sign, which read something to the effect, Los Angeles swim team forming for Gay Olympics in San Francisco over Labor Day. Swimmers needed. As if either of them needed an excuse for men in Speedos to go up and talk to them. But it worked. They recruited some of our best swimmers that year, and West Hollywood Aquatics had the distinction, while Team Los Angeles swimmers had the distinction of having the only 1, 2, 3 victory in aquatics in both an individual event as well as a relay event. In mid-August, the same week we had our Team Los Angeles send-off party at Studio One, we received the shocking news that the U.S. Olympic Committee had won the right in court to prevent us from using the word Olympic. Every item printed, etched, or embedded with the word Olympic either had to be destroyed or the word had to be etched out or crossed out in some manner. They also won the right to hold Tom Waddell financially responsible, a lawsuit that wasn't settled amicably until October of 2000, 14 years after Dr. Waddell had passed away from AIDS. But the moment that epitomized what those first gay games were all about truly belonged to Richard. This shot of him on the left it's an iconic shot of him leaping out of the pool, both fists pumped in the air, and that killer smile of his opened as wide as can be. That photo became the cover of the brochure for Gay Games 2. It, more than any other photo, captured the essence of what each and every one of us Gay Games pioneers felt being part of that revolutionary event. We were free, we were strong, and nobody was going to rain on our parade. Not the USOC, nor those pesky doctors who had just named a strange new virus, gay-related immune deficiency, as it was first known. Besides being the poster boy for Gay Games 2, Richard was featured in many magazines around the world and caused quite a stir with Dr. Waddell and others when he appeared in an ad for Him vitamins. which did not go over too well with the head office. Richard and I didn't reconnect until Gay Games 6 in Sydney 2002. Unfortunately, the years had taken a toll on him, and he was not the athlete he was in 1982 or 86. Up until Gay Games Chicago, Richard held the distinction of being the individual swimmer who had garnered the most individual medals in the aquatics history of the Gay Games. He was surpassed in Chicago by his teammate, my teammate, Paulo Figueiredo, a member of the 1968 Brazil Olympic team. When Errol and I drove up to visit him in 2007, I wish I could say he was looking good. He did his best to remain in positive spirits, but his body was giving out. Despite the advancements in HIV medicines, the high levels of toxicity, among other things, had finally caught up to Richard. Thus, it really came as no surprise when Errol informed the team that Richard had had a heart attack while leaving his doctor's office on August 23rd. His commitment to his sport and the Gay Games movement in its infancy was the initial glue that bound our swimmers together at those first Gay Games. Athletes from West Hollywood Aquatics were instrumental in establishing international gay and lesbian aquatics. Many of those same athletes were responsible for establishing the Federation of Gay Games, which has fostered the Gay Games movement since 1989. Although Richard was not involved in those organizations, he was a mighty pebble that started many of the first ripples that led to the sea of change. Richard Hunter was a giant, of that there is no doubt. His passion was contagious. His enthusiasm and energy were boundless. Despite being so flawlessly beautiful, he was one of the most approachable guys you could possibly meet. He was one of only 2 individuals left with whom I had worked with in Los Angeles locally on those Gay Games. And he was the last one in Los Angeles who had also worked with Dr. Waddell. So obviously this is a very deep personal loss for me. And as someone who has been living with HIV since 1985, I know that his spirit and that of others who we have lost will be guiding me in my work in IGLA and the Federation and beyond. Richard's favorite spot on this planet was Hawaii, and he loved visiting the Pacific Islands. So in closing, I will say the words that come from Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud in New Zealand. He mama haratanga, in loving memory to Richard Hunter. May he find the peace and rest that eluded him in life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shrami, for that beautiful tribute. Will the readers and unfolders please take their places? The ceremony that we're about to conduct is fashioned after the original unfolding of the AIDS Memorial Quilt in Washington, D.C. on October 11th, 1987. And we pattern our ceremony after those traditions.